Sup everyone, holy macaroni, that Settlers of Kalguur announcement was absolutely insane. I'm incredibly hyped and I can't wait for the league to start finally. So, in preparation for Friday, I went up and down through the free 25 patch notes and I tried to understand what all those changes mean for the currency farming meta, and I compiled a list of the, in my opinion, top 5 currency strategies for the first 3 days. I'll briefly explain the mechanics, which requirements they have, which builds are good for them, and how you can make money off them. However, before I get into the list, we have to talk about the most impactful changes to the economy to try to understand in which direction the meta is going to evolve. In my opinion, the most impactful changes are the currency exchange market, no quantity on gear available anymore, the quality changes to gear, recombining coming back, the T17 nerf, and the addition of the new Chissels. The currency exchange market is a long-awaited feature that is aiming to combat the bad trade experience everyone had. You'll be able to sell and buy all stackable items, including currencies, scarabs, div cards, tattoos, and so on. This change in particular will give value to low trade amount items like oils and will make it far easier to monetize your farming strategies. Selling and buying oils doesn't sound painful anymore. Quantity on gear got removed. The playing field is more even now, and the amount of farming strats that non-MF characters can competitively run has increased drastically. The div card market especially will see quite a significant change. One might say we will see less mage splits and headhunters, but I believe the opposite to be the case. Before this change, scarabs that affected farming stress that also got affected by item quant, like for example div card farming, got priced according to how much MF characters could pull out of them, making these strats a money loser for the vast majority of players. Now we can scroll our div cards to drop from a map we want, and everyone has the same chances to get one. Every source of quality above 20% has been removed aside from drops and div cards. Quality has been changed to work multiplicatively, making it much stronger than before. You can only get above 20% item quality via random drops or div cards now, leading to a hunt for strong item bases with maximum quality already applied. This change, combined with recombinators coming back, will make item bases and certain mods incredibly valuable. All temple mods, breach and delve mods will gain value. Fractured items, although already being valuable, will get even more now. I suspect any league mechanic that shits out special items or mods is going to be far better than before. The tier 17 map nerf will make farming them a lot more accessible, while also having nerfed rewards will lead to a more diverse farming meta between tier 16s and tier 17s, depending on the type of strat you're doing, of course. All flames and back to basics are removed as well, so we will most likely see a focus on certain league mechanics again, and those are usually layout specific, making tier 17s a pain to run. Although GGG added the new Rares Fracture and Death mod in tier 17s, which kinda scares me. It just might end up where we left it in Necropolis, farm tier 17s or fall behind. We'll just have to wait and see. The new Chissels look spicy. Getting 100% more scarabs, currency or div cards is so powerful that we'll end up wanting to use these on every single map we are running. We don't know where they'll drop yet, but we can assume either in high level mapping content or from Maven as a replacement for elevated sextants. Finding a strategy to maximize these chisels will most likely be pretty decent next league. All of these changes combined will shake up the meta a lot. Now that we understand the changes, let's get into my top 5 list of the best currency mapping strategies for day 1 to 3. The strats are in order of difficulty, starting with the easiest and ending with the hardest. I haven't included strats like beast memory farming on purpose, because they require very specific setups which aren't realistic for most players. Blight was already pretty decent in past leagues, especially right on league start where character power is low and item bases are worth something. Blight shits out item bases like candy, and this league Blight will get multiple buffs. The first one being the addition of prismatic oils and its anointments on the skill tree. The second buff is a quality change, since in Blight you should still be able to get above 20% quality items, although I'm not 100% sure on this, the wording in the patch notes is kinda weird. And the third buff is the addition of recombinators, further pushing the hunt for high quality, high item level bases. We cannot get oil extractors anymore, but prices for silver and gold oil will most likely adjust accordingly, which means it probably won't impact the farming strat at all. As a league mechanic, Blight is incredibly easy. Even Blight Ravaged maps hardly need any character power at all to complete, making this the perfect strategy for beginners and veterans alike. If you want to go all out into Blight, it is recommended to have Explosions or Ignite/Poison Prolif in your build, but it is absolutely not necessary, and any build can handle it. Personally, I will most likely start with Blight right after campaign and a little bit of Atlas progression to set my league starter up. You were able to make around 6 to 8 divine per hour the last couple of leagues, but I'm pretty sure you'll make a lot more this league, especially once people will start to buy your item bases. I'm estimating around 10 divine per hour on day 1 to 3. If you're looking for a Blight guide, I can recommend to look at Travis' Blight videos, where he goes in great detail explaining everything you need to know. I've linked his YouTube channel in the description as well. Sanctum is the premier day 1 farming strategy. The amount of raw divines this league mechanic prints compared to everything else is just disgusting. How it works is you start off by going for shop reveals and gold, so you can buy out every single relic from the vendor. This will let you build up another set of relics that you can use to go for more consistent currency rewards in stages 3 and 4. Sanctum starts at around 5 divine an hour and is easily around 10 to 20 divine per hour once you start farming and finding sellable relics. When you start to go for the currency rewards, it gets a lot more consistent and it will end up at around 20 to 25 divine per hour if you have a very good Sanctum build. However, that brings me to my next point, which is the difficulty. Sanctum is not necessarily difficult if you know what you're doing and if you have a good build for Sanctum. The most popular Sanctum build is Hex Blast, because it provides tremendous single target damage from very far away. But if you do not have a high single target range damage build, you will find yourself not being able to complete your Sanctums and thus lose out on currency, especially on League Start. Don't do Sanctum on League Start unless you know what you're doing and you have a build that is made to farm them. Potentially, fractured item farming is the most valuable strat in the first 2 weeks. Last league I made around 50 divines per hour on day 3 by farming fractured items via the Awakening Scarab with the Enhanced Anarchy map crafting option. In this league we don't have Necropolis crafting anymore and recombinators are coming back. Both changes will drastically increase the prices of fractured items, especially if they can drop with above 20% quality. I'm not gonna lie, IDing the items and selling them was pretty painful and slow, but the yield is absolutely crazy. I wouldn't be surprised if we hit 30 to 40 divines per hour from fractured items on a min-max setup this league. Of course, this hinges entirely on the fact that you can recombinate 2 fractured mods onto one item. It is hard to estimate how much currency you are going to make per hour because it entirely depends on the item bases and fractured mods you find, but if I had to give an estimate, it's between 5 to 25 divines per hour starting out and scaling quite considerably with difficulty. I would recommend to start the strat on day 2 or 3 because people are usually buying fractured items a little bit later into their progression. Fractured item farming is actually pretty hard, because we are farming Rogue Exiles in tier 16 and tier 17 maps. You'll need high single target damage and you'll need to be tanky, otherwise this is going to be hell for you. You can scale the difficulty by going into tier 17 so you can drop item level 86 bases for certain slots, and adding Delirium for a higher quant and rarity modifier leading to more fractured items. I have made a video guide on this particular strat last league, but Grimbro has made one too, and quite frankly it is just better than mine, so make sure to check out his video. I've linked it in the description below. Ultimatum is still criminally underrated. It's probably because the real rewards are hiding behind certain scarab combinations, or maybe it's because actually clearing ultimatums, especially with the keystone allocated, requires an insanely tanky character. Ultimatum was around 20 divine an hour in tier 16's last league, if you had a strong character, and Ultimatum just got buffed. The monsters now drop loot just like every other monster in a map, making it even better now. At league start, you'll want to build up your currency so that you can eventually buy and use 2 scarabs. the Ultimatum Scarab of Catalyzing and of Inscription, which will turn all of your Ultimatum rewards into inscribed ultimatums. These inscribed ultimatums have rewards associated with them, and on League start, especially the unique and currency inscribed ultimatums, should yield a lot of currency. If you can clear your map ultimatums in tier 16s, you'll be able to clear your inscribed ultimatums as well. Just make sure to keep an eye out for build bricking mods. As I mentioned earlier, Ultimatum requires an insanely tanky character. Last league I used a splitting steel trickster and it was quite decent. More damage is always better, but even if you one-shot every single mob, you'll still have to deal with the Ultimatum mechanics. Luckily for us, endurance charges just got buffed and will make all builds using them more tanky than before. Make sure to pick up every single inscribed ultimatum and sort them according to their increased life modifier. These life modifiers are basically representing the tier of the ultimatum and can be vendored 5-1 for a different reward within the same tier. 70% increased life maps can give 4 divines as a reward, for example, and 120% gives 8 divines. Do not throw away any 200% increased life maps for this exact reason. I've pulled out a Mageblood and the special mirror reward last league with the vendor recipe. And last but not least, tier 17 boss rushing. It is currently pretty hard to estimate where this strat will land at league start, but if your build is able to clear the tier 17 map bosses on day 1 or 2, you can start boss rushing them for fragments and boss loot. Last league, Venture made I think around 20 to 30 divine an hour on day 1, because he was able to clear them while most other people were still struggling. Now the difficulty got nerfed, which will lead to more people being able to clear them, and thus the market of fragments will be saturated more quickly than last league. It's still going to be a pretty decent strat that will most likely cap at around 20 divine per hour on a fast character. I'm not entirely sure where to put this strat difficulty wise. It sounds like tier 17s on their own won't be that much harder than a juice tier 16 and probably just slightly harder than Elder or the Maven normal boss fights. But it's hard to say, which is why I've put it on the last spot. I think it will probably end up being easier than Ultimatum, but the profit margins will go down very quickly. That was my list of the top 5 currency farming strategies in the early stages for the Settlers of Kalguur League. But before I wrap up the video, there are a few honorable mentions that I'd like to say a few words about, and if you're interested, I'll share what I'm planning to do the first few days to achieve my goal of getting an original sin this league. As far as I know, this is the first time in PoE's history that we are actually incentivized to interact with the league mechanic as quickly as possible, because GGG has included timers, which means you shouldn't skip the league mechanic in your campaign, but instead start it as soon as you have your first goal together. You're most likely going to need certain materials in order to upgrade the higher level buildings, and if it takes an hour for your ore to be smelted, you'd rather wanna start earlier than later. I have absolutely no idea how good the league mechanic is going to be. The past leagues, the mechanics usually start out slowly and get buffed a couple days in, but there's no harm in starting early and finding out. Legion is a staple farming strat for the past 5 leagues. It is pretty easy compared to other mechanics and drops decent currency in form of incubators. Unfortunately, stack decks were removed from the rewards, which hit Legion pretty significantly. It is still a decent strategy that only requires you to have a good clearing skill. It will start out around 6 divine an hour and cap at around 10 divine per hour. Expedition is a little bit harder on your build than Legion, but also a lot more rewarding, especially on league start. Rock is incredibly powerful and nicely synergizes with Recombinators and the Reflective Mist from Kalandra. It is also far easier to farm logbooks with the Scarab of Awakening. It is hard to estimate Rock's value, but overall you can expect to make around 10 divine per hour with Expedition. You are probably wondering why Simulacrum isn't in my top 5. To be honest, if I were to guess, I'd say it will build pretty fucking good next league. However, I haven't included Simus because it's hard to estimate how fast people will be able to clear them and how much money they'll be making, but also simply because you cannot get the league mechanics ores in your Simulacrums, and I didn't want to bait anyone into a potential disaster. I'm eager to find out how good Simulacrums are going to be the next league though. Depending on how good simulacrums are going to be, we might see a resurgence of daily mirror splinter farming. It is currently pretty easy to get to the cap of 300 splinters per map via the daily mirror and Alva. Also, Alva becomes more valuable because of a special temple moss that will be used for recombinating. It was already a decent strategy last league, capping at around 12 divine an hour, and I guess it's just going to increase this league. Ritual has the potential to be absolutely cracked this league. I've just seen a video by Borloch, that I've also linked in the description below, on the changes, and it convinced me to try it out pretty early, however not on day 1 to 3. I think Ritual could be combined with a fractured item strategy and Wisp, but that sounds incredibly hard to pull off, especially early. I'm planning to start my Atlas progression right after campaign, pick up some Blight nodes once I hit red maps, and farm the first few divines to set up my character for tier 16 farming. At this point I'm probably going to switch to a low budget strength stacker with Alberon's boots. Once I have a little bit of gear and a bit of currency to buy scarabs with, I make a tree for fractured item farming in tier 16s and another one for Ultimatum. I'll start to build up a stash of fractured items that can sell slowly while I'm farming Ultimatum and the league mechanic until I'm either burned out on it or I find something more fun and profitable. There's a lot to experiment with next league, especially now that there's no MF on gear. I might actually go for div card farming at some point. If you've made it this far, please leave a like, it helps out tremendously with the YouTube algorithm. I will be making more videos next league, so if you wanna stay up to date with my farming strats, make sure to subscribe to my channel. Now, that's it from me. Make sure to have enough water by your side on league start and may the divines rain upon you. Have a good one. Until next time. Peace!